Huh. Well, interesting. Just watched a lot of videos that relate to this subject that I'm about to talk about. So the subject is revolution and violence. Well, I've always felt that we need an... I'm sort of revolutionary by a common definition of the term. But I've also long felt that a revolution was a bad idea. You know, I believe in words have meanings, and that the meanings are subtle, and that the meanings have historical and metaphorical meanings. And I don't like revolution because that's to revolve. Now, I love spinning things. You can see some of my videos have spinning things in them. But when it comes to social structure, the last thing we need to do is spin around. We don't need a new king, and we need to question whether we should have a king. Now, a lot of the world now doesn't have kings as far as we can see, except for metaphorically. But still, the question remains the same. Do we need to get rid of kings, or do we just need good kings? Good kings. And I think the world of the human mind is stuck, thinking we need good kings. It's not that we don't need wars, we need to fight good wars. But really, there's a problem in the world, and it's an old problem. And the problem is oppression. I think the problem is hierarchy. And the question is, how do we change this? Well, a lot of people think that the right people, the good people, need to rise up and win some sort of a war. And that's their revolution. And I think the question is, how do we evolve? You see, the problem with the right people rising up, well, there's a couple problems. One is some sort of an idea that it's possible, or that the masses of people will rise up and be aligned in this right direction. The real problem is, who's going to lead them? If you win a revolution with a bunch of guns, then you're going to have the best gunner as your ruler. And that gunner will turn on the followers. We need to get rid of followers. In order to have a good leader, you'd have to have good followers. And if you had good followers, then you don't really need a good leader. So we need to have an evolution without violence. That's not to say that I'm not a pacifist. I believe that there are times when force is required. It's just a lot fewer times than we seem to think in our society now and in history. Now is a funny time because basically we have a lot of people that behave in a passive way. They are passive kinds of people. They won't even state their opinions. And yet we have more gun worship than ever before, more fantasizing that people can equalize themselves with guns. And here guns are really just a metaphor for violence. So how do we rise up? Well, the traditional idea, it's become traditional, is to create what is called a meritocracy, where you have a system of some sort that helps people with the merit that deserve to have the power, and then they oppress us, but they have merit. And that's impossible. That's just impossible. Because to have a meritocracy, you have to have some system. And it's going to choose people of a certain type that will have merit in terms of satisfying the rules of the game, that have merit in terms of the ability to win the game that you have designed. And as we know, there's lots of different kinds of games. And the reason different kinds of people win different kinds of games is that human beings naturally specialize. We are individuals. We have a wide variety of things that we're capable of. So the goal is not to find a meritocracy of who should lead us all, who should oppress us well. The question is how to get the specialists into the special roles. But that still leaves us with this problem, that we're oppressed now. We don't have the opportunity to get the specialists that should be in the special roles into those roles. How do you do that? Well, I think it follows from our internal makeup. The society that we have is a reflection on how we organize our internal minds. We seek to be kings in our own mind and to rule our own minds. So we accept the idea of kings, and it expresses itself in our collective mind. We oppress ourselves if we're trying to force ourselves to do something, if we're trying to have a strong will. We don't like to tolerate contradiction in ourselves. And I know, because I'm willing to have two ideas. And one, I believe this percent, and this other one I believe another percent, and then these other ones a little bit of the percent, and maybe ones I don't believe at all, but I respect. And I entertain these contradictions. But people don't like to do that. They want you to decide and be certain. And they also weigh things and believe something in a proportional way, and I believe this more than that. But when they believe this just a little bit, they'll just pretend it doesn't exist, because they don't want to tolerate the contradiction. They're told that's a contradiction that makes their idea, their self-identity, incoherent. Who am I if I can't decide? So we end up with a society that can't decide because it's a constant war. And really the problem is not how do we decide, the problem is how do we refrain from deciding. Is it possible to refrain from deciding? Do we really have to decide which religion is correct? Or do we have to figure out a way to let people believe whatever they want? You know, to me the question has an obvious answer. We need to change ourselves internally so that we do not apply hierarchy to ourselves. That we understand that the liver and the heart are specialists. They don't have ranks. They're specialists. And they work together as specialists. And this is true of liberal and progressive people that are trying to push into the future, that are trying to move beyond oppression and beyond slavery. Still, look at progressive organizations. They rely on hierarchy, which is an inherently authoritarian structure. And they seek to put, people of merit in the positions of power, thinking that then those people of merit will work against authoritarianism. But how can they? They're using authoritarianism. So at best, they can work against the authoritarianism of someone else. But if they get enough power, then their authoritarianism will be the problem. If progressives and liberals really are closer to what we need in the future, and in many ways they are, and in many ways they aren't, because conservatives, at least right now, seem to understand a world of ideology and principle